Da 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 da. How close can you go? Yeah, I know that's a terrible pun, but this is a tricky region to come up with a pun for. Da 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 da. Here we are, Gen 6. Pokemon is now in 3D full time. There have been 3D Pokemon games before, but those were all spin-offs. This is the first time the main series was in 3D. This was also the point where the Pokemon franchise started to do what I like to call Star Wars adjustments. Basically, it's a term I coined to when a franchise makes all of its decisions based on the reception of the previous entry, named after the Disney Star Wars movies, which felt like every film was written as a response to what people were saying about the last film. Now look, there's nothing wrong with responding to criticisms, but when you base your entire media only to satisfy criticisms, that feels a bit disingenuous, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain what the difference between addressing criticisms and doing whatever this is, forget it. Anyway, in this case, I felt like they went, oh, people didn't like how few previous gen Pokemon were in Gen 5? Then let's make our roster mostly previous gen Pokemon, especially Gen 1, because that's what the people want. Anyways, let's get to the Pokemon. Gen 6 only had 72, and one of them was an evolution, so it's actually only 71 brand new Pokemon. To this day, this is the lowest amount of Pokemon introduced, and for the next 3 generations, we're only going to be dealing with double digits, making these videos going to be a lot easier to make. Now, I get why they have the Pokemon amounts, since, making a 3D model is harder than making a sprite, and this is the first time they're making Pokemon exclusively for 3D settings, so I get it. As for the theme of this generation, I would have to say elegance. A lot of this Pokemon give off an air of fanciness. So yeah, let's dig into the first batch of 3D exclusive Pokemon and see what we find. Gen 6's Grass-type Chespin is a weird squirrel thing mixed with a chestnut. This guy has spikes on its head, usually they're soft, but if it wants to, then it can harden them to the point that they can pierce through rocks. And the armor on their back and head is made of wood so tough they can be hit by a truck and not even feel it. Level 16, they evolve into Quilladin. Now fully encased in armor, this Pokemon is very tough to bite into, and it can use its spiky quills if they start to get rough. However, it's mentioned that they only attack in defense and never start the conflict. Also, they exercise by slamming into each other. Well, if it works, I guess. Level 36, they evolve into Chestnut. This big guy is very tough, able to flip tanks with its tackles, and its armor is so strong they could survive a bomb blast without even a scratch. And they're also very protective, protecting their friends with their tough bodies. So yeah, the grass, hedgehog, squirrel things. What is Chespin supposed to be exactly? I know it's part chestnut, but what's the mammal part? Oh well, questions scientists will never have the answer to, I guess. Fennekin is a fennec fox and the fire starter of Gen 6. This guy, despite being a fox, is basically all but stated to be an herbivore, as it primarily eats sticks. But I guess it needs something to burn, so, yeah. Also, they can shoot fire out of their ears to intimidate foes. At level 16, they evolve into Braixen. This Pokemon has a stick stuck in its tail, presumably from its wood-based diet of its previous form. Anyway, when it's in danger, they can pull the stick out, whereupon the friction causes the tip to burst into flames, which they can then use to attack or communicate with each other. Finally, at level 36, they evolve into Delphox. And finally, we don't have a fire fighter. Instead, Fire Psychic, meaning they have a type advantage over the last 3 fire starters. Yep. This fire staff is not only able to shoot out incredibly hot flames and incinerate most of their enemies, but they can also see into the future by staring into their flames. So yeah, the fire wizard foxes. Nice. Froakie is a frog and the water starter of Gen 6. This guy is able to cover himself in bubbles, which according to the anime are called frubbles. Okay. Which help reduce damage they would otherwise take from attacks. It's also mentioned that despite their happy appearance, they're a pretty cautious species that's always keeping tabs on its surroundings. Level 16, they evolve into Frogadier. These guys are very accurate with their attacks, capable of wrapping a pebble in bubbles and hitting a can over 100 feet away. And they're agile to the point of being able to climb huge skyscrapers in under a minute. Finally, at level 36, they evolve into Greninja. This frog ninja is able to make shurikens out of water that are so sharp they can slice metal in half. And like any good ninja, they're very sneaky, capable of remaining undetected by its enemies while they assault them with their sharp water blades. Greninja also has the alternate form Ash Greninja, originally debuting in the anime as a form Greninja took on due to a strange, phenomenal thing known as the Bond effect or something. In this form, Greninja's stronger, but it also hurts you, according to the anime. I don't know. I stopped watching the anime around this point, so I'm not fully caught up on what the deal with this guy is. Greninja is pretty much the breakout star at Gen 6. Like Lucario, it's been a frequent player in the Smash series, and it's actually the most popular Pokemon in Japan according to polls. So I guess frog ninjas are just cool or something. Gen 6 early route mammal is Bunnelby. This rabbit does not use its front paws to dig, but rather its ears. This Pokemon is good at digging. They can dig 33 feet in just one night. And like real rabbits, they're very paranoid creatures, fleeing at the first hint of danger. At level 20, they evolve into Diggersby. Now their ears are as strong as an excavator, able to destroy bedrock and lift boulders. Because of their strength, they're very popular Pokemon in construction sites. And their fur is a popular thing to make coats of. Don't worry, they don't kill them to get the fur, apparently. They just shave them like sheep, so don't worry. So yeah, the rabbits whose evolution form looks like someone's drunk uncle. Nice. Gen 6's early route bird is Fletchling. This bird is very friendly and has a beautiful singing voice, and despite not being a fire type yet, they can bring their body temperature very high to scorch their foes. Despite their friendliness, though, they are very territorial and will mercilessly peck at things that bother them. Level 17, they evolve into Fletchinder, now a fire type. This Pokemon hunts by lighting tall grass on fire like a black kite, and eating whatever runs away from the flames. They're also even more aggressive and territorial, not tolerating if any other Fletchinder enters their turf. Also, their speed is determined by how hot their flame sacs are. Finally, at level 35, they evolve into Talonflame. This bird of prey is very fast and very strong. They have a diet mostly consisting of other flying types, where it'll dive at them and then smack them into the ground. They can also attack by spreading embers from their wings in order to burn their foes. Because of their feathers are fireproof, they're often used in fireproof material like firefighting outfits. So yeah, the fiery robins that become flaming eagles. Very cool. It's easy to see why Talonflame is a fan favorite, because it's a fiery eagle. That's just cool mixed with awesome. Scatterbug is a caterpillar and sorta like a reboot of Caterpie. This caterpillar is very resilient thanks to the powder covering it, allowing it to live basically anywhere. In addition, if attacked, they can spew out poisonous powder over their attacker. Level 9, they evolve into Spupa. This pupa is very tough, as nothing can get past its shell. If anything bothers them, then they will be sprayed by a powder that's poisonous, and they will release sharp spikes from their body. Unlike other cocoon Pokemon, Spupa is still mobile. In fact, moving actually helps them build up energy for evolution. Speaking of, at level 12 they evolve into Vivillon. This Pokemon is notable for how many variants it comes in. You see, in Gen 6, Vivillon had the gimmick where wherever your 3DS was located, then their pattern would change accordingly. There were 18 different patterns, as well as 2 that were given out only as events. They're the ones at the bottom, the one with the Minecraft flowers and the Pokeball. So yeah, the regional butterflies. Pretty cool. Unless you're trying to collect them, in which case it's a nightmare. Yay? Well, it took 6 generations, but we finally have a lion. You could argue the Shinx line, but that was more based on lynxes. Starting as Litleo, this line lives and prides of others of its line until it learns how to hunt by itself, at which point they get kicked out. These Pokemon love fighting, with them becoming hotter the stronger their opponent is. At level 35, they evolve into Pyroar. Like real lions, males have manes while females do not. Instead, females have a long ponytail? Is that what that proper term is? I don't know. Anyway, like real lions, males are the leaders of the group, with the role falling upon the one with the largest mane, who is constantly being challenged for his position. Also, they're like some of the only fire types who don't cook their food. Their fire is purely for defending themselves from rivals. Also, like real lions, the females are the ones in charge of hunting and raising the cubs. I wonder if they do the thing where when a new lion becomes in charge, they kill all the cubs. Sorry for reminding you that's a thing, but it's a genuine question. So yeah, the Fire Lion King. Man, their version of the Lion King must have been awesome. Flabebe is a strange creature that's latched onto a flower. When they're born, they look for a flower they like and latch onto it for the rest of their life. They also wear a pollen crown, which to me sounds like a literal torture, because pollen is evil and never mind. Also, they take flower power literally, as they have no powers without their flower. Level 19, they evolve into Floette. This Pokemon takes care of flowers, with them celebrating whenever they start to bloom, and also the more pretty its flower, the stronger they are, and they will never forgive you if you hurt a flower. Finally, when given a shiny stone, they evolve into Florges. These Pokemon get their energy from the flower they surround themselves with, and the flowers it grows are said to have medicinal properties, with rulers in the past bringing them in to make flower beds for them. One thing to note about this line is that they come in 5 different colors: red, yellow, orange, blue, and white, with the color they are being determined based on the color of the flowers you find them in is. There is also Eternal Flower Floette, who is a planned event Pokemon based on a story Floette, who I don't have time to get into the lore of, but the event was cancelled and it's unusable in gameplay, only seen in cutscenes. So yeah, the Flower Fairies and the first new fairy types instead of ones that were just retconned. So yeah, pretty cool. Skidoo the grassy goat is another example of a grass type feeding by photosynthesis, since it's mentioned that as long as it has sun and water, they don't need to eat. It's also mentioned that they were some of the earliest Pokemon to be tamed, a reference to how goats were some of the first livestock. They're also a great Pokemon for rides, capable of carrying a man and still going at super fast speeds and jumping high. Level 32, they evolve into Go Goat! These Pokemon live in herds where the leader is whoever is the strongest, and they can detect the mood of their trainer by how they grip their horns. They're said to be very empathetic. Unrelated side note, why does Hollywood think that screaming goats is the funniest thing ever? It seems like every time there's a goat in a movie, it's like, oh, they made the funny scream noise. Like, seriously, does anyone find that funny anymore besides out-of-date screenwriters? Ugh, I swear that they will never let that die, will they? Every time there's a goat, it has to make the noise because that's so funny. It's still funny after like 10 years or so. You are so original for having a goat scream. You should deserve an award for that. Pancham is a panda that engages in fighting, but not specifically kung fu. Pancham is a scrappy little guy who tries to seem scarier than he is, constantly giving out looks that he thinks are intimidating to scare foes, but since it's literally a baby panda, nobody is freaked out. They're also always chewing on a leaf. At level 32, if there's a dark type in your party, they evolve into Pangoro. These Pokemon love fighting, with it being said that when they communicate, they do it with their fists, and that if you're a trainer, you gotta deal with this behavior. So it's like owning a cat, I guess. A twig in their mouth is also said to be able to detect movement, allowing them to gain the upper hand. However, despite their violent demeanor, they despise bullies. So yeah, the pandas that could fight with Kung Fu, but they also use other fighting techniques, so they're not fully Kung Fu pandas. So DreamWorks, you can't sue! Ha ha! Well, since Gen 6 takes place in Poke France, it only makes sense that we get the dog associated with that country. Furfro is a poodle that people like to cut the hair of. Haircuts you can give Furfro are said to make it faster, but only people it trusts are allowed to cut it. In addition, it's said they used to be considered dogs of the king in ancient times. So yeah, they're basically just poodles that you can cut the hair of. Not much else to say. Esper is a small gray cat with big eyes. Interestingly, it's said that its psychic powers come from a special organ and not its brain, which is interesting to think about. Speaking of, it's said that their psychic power is incredibly strong, but they also have no control over it, so it tries its best to make sure that it never unleashes it, which is why it never blinks. It's focusing all of its energy on making sure it doesn't release its psychic powers at the wrong moment. Level 25, they evolve into Meowstic. This Pokemon can now control its powers, which is good because the power is now strong enough to reduce a semi-truck to dust. Also, it said that female Meowstic have been known to torment people with their powers if they don't get what they want. So that's fun. Speaking of, male Meowstic are blue and are better at defense, while females are white and better at attacking. So yeah, the psychic cats. No connection to Mew, though. Honage is a sentient sword, said to be possessed by those who died in combat. You might be tempted to wield this blade. Don't fall for it. If you grab its hilt, Honage will suck your soul out. Level 35, they evolve into Doublade. Doublade? Probably Doublade since it's double in blade, but whatever. The sword is split in two, and they work together with telepathic energy to make sure they have devastating attacks. After all, two swords are a lot harder to fight off than one. Finally, when given a Dusk Stone, they evolve into Aegislash. The sword have become one again, but now they have a shield, which is a very powerful defense mechanism.
Agislash was owned by several kings in medieval times, and it said they have the ability to detect who will be a ruler or not. So I guess they're like the sword and the stone. You can only be king if you're worthy, according to the sword. Or something like that, I don't know. And it said that if the sword considers you a leader, then you are destined to one day become a ruler. So yeah, the sentient swords. The end. Spritzee is a strange bird creature whose nose resembles a plague doctor mask. Spritzee is a Pokemon that has a very lovely fragrance to it that changes depending on what it's eaten. Before perfume was invented, people instead carry Spritzees around. It would probably be better anyway, because I hate perfume. There, I said it. Every perfume to me has smelled exactly the same, and the scent is terrible. It always just smells like chemicals. I don't smell strawberry afternoon or whatever they are. I just smell cleaning solution. Same goes for cologne and deodorant. Those things never smell right to me. Okay, I'm getting off topic. When Spritzee is traded while holding the sachet item, they evolve into aroma teas. These Pokemon now have fragrances so strong they can often cause one to lose their sense of smell, and it's recommended trainers keep away from them. They use their sense to their advantage, as they're capable of changing what they smell like in order to get an edge on their opponent by making the smell they hate. So yeah, the perfume Pokemon. I will never like perfume. You can't make me. SWIRLIX is a sentient cotton candy creature. Not only does it look like cotton candy, but it tastes and feels like it too. When they attack, they release thin white strings to entrap their foes, and they have a diet mostly consisting of sugar. When traded holding the Whipped Dream item, they evolve into Slurpluff. Now, more like a meringue apparently, this Pokemon has a very acute sense of smell, able to detect even the most minor differences. They can even smell and change in one's mental state. Because of their sense of smell, pastry chefs love them to pick out the freshest ingredients. So yeah, the candy Pokemon. Very sweet. Inkay is a squid, but not water type. Anyway, these guys have hypnotic lights on their head, or mantle. If you stare at them, then you lose all will to fight, and the Inkay will either flee or wrap its tentacles around you and do something. Probably eat you. Okay, now as for how they evolve, oh boy. Inkay evolves at level 30 when the system is upside down. Yes, when they reach their evolutionary level, you have to flip the system upside down. And when you do this, you get Malamar. This Pokemon is considered the best hypnotist in the world, able to make anything do exactly what it wants. And when it does, it brings the prey closer to them and then eats them. In addition, it's said that some people use Malamar's power for their own reasons, which I do not like the implications of. And it's said that they played a role in multiple historical events. I really hate what that implies. This thing is terrifying. Mind control powers always will be. No wonder they're dark types. Yep, we got a barnacle Pokemon before dolphins. This is Binacle. There's two of them, and they attach to the same rock. They argue, one of them leaves, but if they work together, they can be successful. They eat seaweed. Level 39, they evolve into Barbarcle. In this form, the two of them have ended up becoming 7 beings, and because of that, each of its limbs has a mind of its own. Though they're good at teamwork, so they usually do whatever the head says. Weirdly, in Gen 6, it says that the multiple Binacles come from the original 2 multiplying, but in Gen 8, it claims that multiple Binacle come together independently to make this. So if we go off Gen 8, then we got another Pokemon that's said to be multiple things, but you can get them with just one. You know, like Weezing or Dugtrio. So yeah, the Barnacle Pokemon. Barnacles I'll never get over because there's a Barnacle Pokemon! Took 9 generations to get a Dolphin, and we still don't have a Swordfish, but Barnacles got a Pokemon! Barnacles! Skrelp is a leafy sea dragon. Like the real guys, they hide in kelp to camouflage, which helps them evade enemies and help them catch their prey. Since when other Pokemon swim by, they blast them with poison to stun them before going in for the kill. It's said they get this poison by eating rotten seaweed. And like real seahorses and dragons, they're not strong swimmers, so kelp acts as an anchor for them. Level 48, they evolve into Dragalge. Trading in its water type for dragon type, this guy's poison is so strong they can melt large ships. But it's still a poison type, so they can't affect steel types, so bleh. They're also very territorial, spraying powerful acid at anything that comes near them. And it's said that any ship that passes by them will never return. Okay, can you do anything in the Pokemon universe? Because it seems like no matter where you go or what transportation you use, you'll die. Anyway, the literal sea dragons. Very nice. CLAUNCHER is a pistol shrimp. Like their inspiration, they're able to shoot blasts of water from their claws that can stun prey, and their attack is so strong they can break rock. Also, it said their meat's a delicacy, which makes sense since they're shrimp. Level 37, they evolve into CLAUNCHER. One of their claws is now larger than their whole body, and instead of just jets of water, they now launch full-on hydro cannonballs powerful enough to break a tanker. Okay, there are way too many Pokemon that can break tankers. Remind me never to get on a boat in the Pokemon world. They're also very fast swimmers, capable of moving at nearly 70 miles an hour, which is faster than a sailfish. So yeah, the shrimp that you do not want to mess with. And tankers in the Pokemon world seem like a hazard. Helioptile is a strange lizard creature. They're solar powered, literally. Not only do they get all their nutrients from sunlight, but sunlight also gives their body with electricity. Not much else to say of them. When given a sunstone, they evolve into Helios, which is like a hybrid between a basilisk and frilled lizard. They gather energy in their frill, and then they get enough filled with enough power to light an entire city. Electricity also pumps up their muscles, allowing them to run super fast. Not much else to say here, they're just electrical lizards. And they're another Pokemon that makes me wonder where normal type comes from in hybrid pairs. What exactly about these guys makes them normal type? Is it the fact that they get their power from an external source? I don't know. I've never understood dual normal types for where the normal comes from. Well, we did it. After 6 generations, we have a T-Rex. Sure, there was Tyranitar, but he was more like Godzilla, and there was Groudon, but he was more like a theropod in general. Here we have a Pokemon undeniably based on the T-Rex. Revived from the jaw fossil, Tyrunt is a very selfish Pokemon, always demanding stuff, and if it doesn't get it, it throws a tantrum and destroys things. And its bite is strong enough to break a car, so don't get in the way of it. According to Gen 7, the cloning process didn't work entirely right, and what you see isn't actually what they originally looked like, which is a fascinating thing to think about. Level 39, during the day, they evolve into Tyrantrum. This guy has a bite so strong that steel is like paper to it, and like the T-Rex, it's considered the king of the dinosaurs, as it's mentioned they have no competition in their time. Also, they have feathers! Yeah, that ring around their neck, that's feathers, baby! In fact, it said they actually had more feathers in the past, but they got lost in the cloning process. You have no idea how happy I am to see a feathered dinosaur and not have it portrayed as, lol, feathers aren't scary, science ruined dinosaurs, now they're just big birds. I like how they gave feathers to a dinosaur and didn't portray it as goofy. You have no idea how happy this makes me, and on a T-Rex no less. Okay, I'm good, I'm good. So yeah, that's the T-Rex Pokemon. Rather commendably, the first sauropod Pokemon was not based on the stock Apatosaurus or Brachiosaurus, but rather the South American Amargasaurus. Revived from the sail fossil, Amara lived in frozen lands in its time that were said to be so secretive that no large predator could enter, ensuring their safety. Many Aurora have even been found frozen in ice that's millions of years old. It's also said that they can create lights in the sky. Sadly, however, in Gen 7 it's mentioned that the game setting is very bad for them and it might not live that long. Okay, yikes. Level 39 at night, they evolve into Auroros. This Pokemon's neck is covered in crystals that allow it to make freezing cold blasts that can instantly freeze anything. And it makes giant walls of ice to protect itself. So yeah, not only did Gen 6 give us a T-Rex with feathers, but also a lesser-known sauropod. Thank you so much, Pokemon. I really hope the next set of fossil Pokemon didn't waste the potential of a cool animal getting a Pokemon ice so you can make a reference to the Dark Age of Paleontology. Who am I kidding? That'll never happen. They would never do something like that, right? Right? Just a heads up, when we get to Gen 8, I will not have very many nice things to say about its fossil Pokemon, just to let you guys know. Lucha, as its name suggests, is a hawk luchador. Despite its small size, they are very good at fighting, capable of defeating large fighting types like Machamp, despite the massive size difference. This is thanks to their speed, which allows them to dodge their opponent's attacks and then take advantage of their blind spots. Oh yeah. However, their biggest weakness is that they're very show-offy, and their opponents will take advantage of this fact. They also notably have a move called Flying Press, which is the only move that does damage from 2 different types, as it does both fighting and flying type damage. So yeah, the Hawk Luchador. Very cool. Gen 6's Pikachu clone is Dedenne. These Pokemon can use their whiskers to send and receive electrical waves, which they can use to communicate. They can also use their tail as an absorber, and then use it to fire electricity as their foes. Also, it's mentioned they sneak into people's houses and then drain their electricity, driving their bills up high. So thanks a lot, Dedenne. Pika Clone Part 6. Shocking, isn't it? Carbink is a weird sentient geode thing. Like real crystals, they're born from a combination of underground pressure and heat, and they can live for millions of years. It's also said that there's a belief that Carbink have their own secret society somewhere deep underground, but that hasn't been proven yet. So yeah, the crystal Pokemon, not to be confused with Pokemon Crystal, this is the crystal Pokemon, completely different. Gen 6's pseudo-legendary is Goomy, the snail dragon. Goomy is not a very tough creature. In fact, both gameplay-wise and lore-wise, it's the weakest of all the dragon types. Luckily, it's not helpless, as its slimy body means that physical blows don't bother it. However, they have to keep themselves moist so they can live, so they live in damp areas like swamps. Level 40, they evolve into Sliggoo. With more snail-like attributes, this Pokemon slime is a powerful acid capable of dissolving apparently anything. It's mentioned they do this to eat, but they can also use it to defend themselves, but it's also mentioned that they can't distinguish between friends and foes, so they'll spray their acid at really anything. So be careful when approaching them. Also, its eyes are purely ornamental. As it's stated, they don't work, and instead they use their antenna to act as a radar system. Also, their swirl that looks like a shell is where all their organs are. When they reach level 50 while it's raining, they evolve into Goodra. This Pokemon's very friendly and loves hugs, but it's covered in mucus, so you'll just end up slimy if you hug it. It's also never mentioned that they still have acid, so I guess they lose that when they grow up. Instead, they attack using their horns and tail. Though, it takes a lot to get them mad, so they don't use that often in the wild. However, if they do get mad, they're pretty much unstoppable, so don't get them mad! In Legends Arceus, we find out that Sliggoo and Goodra used to be part Steel type, and had true shells, which is speculated to be how much of iron-rich the rain of that area of the game is. They're able to adjust how hard the shell is, too, which is a cool power. I guess eventually the rain stopped being iron-rich, so this subspecies went extinct. The end. FLETCHLING is a sentient keychain. As you can imagine, they like collecting keys. In fact, they will never let go of any key they're given or find. It said they love it when people give them keys, so people use them to hold on to important keys so no one will be able to touch them. In the past, they lived in mines, but they had to migrate to human civilizations eventually. Though, to this day, no one knows why they like collecting keys so much. I have said keys way too many times in this segment. PHANTUMP is a ghost of a child who died in the woods. Yep. Said after they die, they possess tree stumps. They're able to imitate their voice from when they are alive in order to lure people into the woods, which according to the Dex is because they want to make a new friend. Yay. Also, it said their head leaves are very medicinal, with them being able to cure any illness. When traded, they evolve into Trevenant. These Pokemon are the guardians of the forest and will devour anyone who hurts the trees. They also have the ability to control trees by using their roots to act as a nervous system for them. But they're not aggressive Pokemon, as they will allow other Pokemon to live in them, and they're nice to the Pokemon of the forest. It's mentioned that Lumberjacks will bring fire Pokemon with them so that they don't get eaten by Trevenants when they want to cut down a tree. So yeah, another ghost type that makes me wonder what the afterlife's like in Pokemon, because it seems like, depending on where you die, you become a Pokemon and you could become someone's pet. Doesn't that sound like an appealing afterlife? Pumpkaboo is a sentient pumpkin, and like real pumpkins, they come in all sorts of sizes. The only real difference between them is stat changes, and they don't really change appearance besides their size, so I'm not listing them picture-wise in terms of variants. With their sizes said to change depending on how many lost spirits are in the area. You see, these guys act as psychopomps, in that their job is to take spirits trapped in the mortal world to the afterlife. Also fitting of a jack-o'-lantern Pokemon, they can glow, which is said to have hypnotic abilities. When traded, they evolve into Gorgeist. These guys ain't guides anymore. Instead, they like to torment the living by pretending to be children so they can take adults to who knows where. Also, they like to sing, but whoever hears the song is cursed. Lovely pumpkins, ain't they? Also, they have an exclusive move called Trick or Treat, which canonically involves them taking their opponent trick or treating. I am not joking. That's adorable. Bergmite is a strange little glacial creature. It's said that its helmet is made of ice and it wears it on its head to protect it from foes. They live in herds, and if threatened, they will release their foes with freezing cold air. Level 37, they evolve into Avalugg. These guys' ice is as hard as steel, and they like to swim in freezing cold water, often accompanied by several Bergmites on their back. In Legends Arceus, we're introduced to its alternate form, which is part rock type. They have a large shovel-like jaw that can shatter anything with ease. So yeah, the iceberg. Pretty cool. Noibat is another member of the pseudo-legendaries. You know, I remember when X and Y came out, there was actually a lot of debate in the fandom as to whether Goodra or this line was the pseudo-legendary. Good times. Anyway, Noibat is a draconic bat that's capable of delivering very powerful ultrasonic blasts from its ears that act as both echolocation and a weapon. Unlike Zubat, which suck blood, this guy is a fruit bat. In fact, they're very good at picking out the best fruits. Level 48, they evolve into Noivern. This Pokemon is no longer a fruit bat. They now hunt, and it's said that in the dark, nothing can beat them. It doesn't just attack them either. They like to torment their enemies, too. So they're just a big bag of fun, aren't they? Now, despite being carnivores, it's said that if you give them a ripe fruit, they will befriend you and become tame, so that's kinda cool. Well, that's the Draco Bats. The legendary trio of this generation is the Aura Trio, each representing a state of existence. First, there's Xerneas. This deer represents life and can even grant people immortality, and it spends a lot of its time in the ground as a tree before springing to life. Then there's Yveltal, the Death Pokemon. This Pokemon can suck the life force out of any creature, and when it comes to the brink of death, it'll turn into a cocoon. But to get the energy to make the cocoon, it'll absorb the life of every living thing on the planet. So that's fun. Now, kids, this is why you don't kill death. You never know when things like this will happen. Then there's Zygarde, the mediator, who makes sure that life and death don't throw each other out of balance and one isn't prioritized over the other. Zygarde is a cell-based creature whose form changes depending on how complete it is. It can go from a dog to a snake that looks like the letter Z to a anime hero. I don't know. Now, Zygarde continues the trend of a legendary who looks like they're connected to the initial box legendary, but nothing's officially confirmed in the game yet, in the base game, and instead they get their own game that confirms the connection. There has got to be a shorter name for this. So after X and Y focused on Xerneas and Yveltal, Zygarde got the chance to shine in... Oh, right. Yeah, rather infamously, Gen 6 never had a follow-up. No third version, no sequel, no update, no... Remakes? Is that what you'd call Ultra Sun and Moon? I don't know. Instead it just popped out X and Y on the Gen 3 remakes and then boom, next generation. Because of that, many storylines from X and Y went unfinished, and Zygarde rather infamously never got his own game. He did have a side quest in Pokemon Sun and Moon, but it felt pretty tacked on, all things considered. So yeah, that was the legendary trio of this game, as well as the only legendaries available in the base game, as the last 3 Pokemon are event only, so let's get to them. Diance is a crystal-like being. It's said that they're mutated Carbink, and it's said they have the power to create crystals, and they're considered the loveliest Pokemon in the world. Also, Diance is the only Gen 6 Pokemon to get a Mega Evolution, which has no lore. Nope, not doing it. But, on the good news, I'm done, as this is the last Mega Evolution in the series. Hooray! Koopa is a mischievous being based on the Jinn from Arabic folklore. When tied to its bottle, it's in its confined form, but when it's free, it's unbounded. Sadly, they were never in a game where alternate forms are separate dex entries, so we only have the general lore for this guy. Koopa is very mischievous, as the rings it has are able to open portals to anywhere in the universe, where it both banishes things that displease it, and they can also use it to hide things they like. So yeah, the genie Pokemon. Hey, remember how I complained about Heatran and how it was a pointless legendary? Well, guess what? We got another. Volcanion is just underwater Heatran. There, I said it. It represents underwater volcanoes. Ooh. And it can make steam that can blow up mountains. Good for you. Yeah, I don't have much to say. It's just Heatran 2, Underwater Edition. And also, why is this a mythical Pokemon that can only be gotten through events? What? Sure, Heatran's legendary status was stupid, but at least you can get him without events. Why is Volcanion event exclusive? Whatever. This officially marks the point where it feels like they just pick completely arbitrary Pokemon to be event exclusive for basically no reason other than to get more people to download things. Oh, that's Gen 6, everybody. Pretty short video, like I said. This was also the last gen I fully played, so from here on out, it's less familiar grounds for me. See you guys next time when we look at Hawaiian-style Pokemon. Aloha!